me go, let me go, let me go, let me go.
Hi guys, welcome back to my ASMR YouTube channel. Today's case is on the Busby family. So, to summarize everything, this family went from basically the perfect family. They had a lot of fun together, just a very happy family, to people who had become very scared for their lives overnight. So let's start. It was in Falmouth, Massachusetts. Every summer the family would go to the beach. One summer it was Cylin Busby, her two older brothers Eric and Sean, her dad, her mom, and her cousin Kelly, who was there to watch over the kids. Cylin's father, John Busby, was a police officer and he took his job very seriously. He was not a man to be messed with. Her father was an athlete. He was handsome. He was very self-confident. He was like one of the nicest fathers you could meet. He always made sure his children felt safe, as if nothing bad would happen to them as long as he was around. August 31st, 1979. That night, John Busby had left for work. He only drove half a mile when he'd been shot. So he was driving and a car came up behind him and it was matching his speed. And then it drove up right beside him and he was shot. The second he was shot, he knew who was trying to kill him. When the officers found him, he was shaking. He was holding towels up to his face. He got out a pen and a notebook and he wrote to the officers, "Not an accident. Melvin Rainey did this." John knew exactly who wanted him dead. We'll a suspect in another murder case. He was suspected of killing 3 people. 2 of those bodies were never found. Melvin had been married to a woman some time ago, Wanda Medeiros Rainey. In 1971, Wanda went missing. He said he didn't know what happened to her. He said that he dropped her off at a bus stop and she was never seen again. So that was a little suspicious. About a year after that, a boy named Jeff Lanigan had been missing. He was dating a 17-year-old girl who was babysitting for the Rainey family, who Melvin was interested in. Jeff was found shot to death. His body was found in a cranberry barb across the street from Melvin Rainey's home. Another 17-year-old boy named Paul Allward, who had worked for Melvin Rainey's family, was set to testify against Melvin in an arson investigation. The police promised to protect Paul. They put him, after he testified, they put him on a ferry to go live with some family members quite far away until the case was over and done with, but Paul never made it off of the ferry. Even after all of this, Melvin always walked free after everything happened, and people thought this was because the officers were scared of him. Melvin had a way of getting even or making people disappear without anybody knowing or being traced back to him, so the police officers were scared that Melvin could do this to their families or hurt their own children and everything. Now, like I said before, John Busby was a police officer that took his job very seriously. One day, John Busby was overlooking a traffic accident, and he was basically telling the cars to slow down or stop or something, I don't know. And Melvin's brother was at the scene, and he just drove straight through and hit John with his truck. John went to his house later on and arrested him. It was just before that court hearing that John had been shot, and John had wrote that note about Melvin. People were still scared of Melvin, so they didn't do much to arrest him. They were almost protecting him even. There was a police log with all of the complaints people had that night, and there was stuff on it there's loud noises in this house, and dogs are barking in this house, and there's 2 drunks near blah 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 blah. But the police never logged the biggest thing that happened that night, which was that John had been shot by somebody, and he suspected that it was Melvin. Why wasn't that put into the log when there's a bunch of irrelevant things in the log? So it seemed like the police officers, by not recording it, they were trying to protect Melvin, or they were trying to hide that anything happened. Even though Melvin seemed so suspicious, they never interviewed him once, interrogated him. Anyway, John Busby survived the shot, the bullet. He knew justice would not be served. He had to do it himself. Thank you for